workshop seen is Q&A on Friday. Take 1 and action.
Hey, welcome to Q&A on Friday, where we talk about some of the inquiries that have come in through our live chat or on comments on our YouTube channel. And we want to get quick answers out every week so that we can be more interactive with everybody while we're making the Reach It workshops. But first, I think I should have a cup of coffee. Oh, thank you. Good. Okay, topic number 1. Need my glasses. So somebody asked us, do we have any tips or tricks for pole work with female window cleaners? Said that would be nice. And I think this is actually quite a good topic because biologically one would assume that the majority of women are a lighter frame and a lighter structure than the average biological male of the same breeding of race or whatever you want to call it. So my assumption is, because she hasn't gone into any detail about why she wants this information, but my assumption is that she would be of a lighter frame than the average male, and that would make the reason why she would want tips and tricks. So there's a couple that I have in mind that I think are relevant, and they're also relevant to small framed male window cleaners. So if somebody is short and cleaning 1 and 2 stories, then the first thing you would want to do is make sure that you don't get a pole that's made out of 6-foot sections. So we can make a bigger pole cheaper by making the sections longer, right? Because you use less carbon fiber and all. But let me grab one. Where are you, Tactical? All right. So this is Tactical, and if I put it beside me, you can see it's up to my chest height. But if you're up to my shoulder, then it's up to your nose, so that I'm 6'6", 2 meters. So the first thing is you want to make sure that you have a pole, not just the the compact height, but where is the first clamp? And does it pull apart so it can get lighter? So this pole will pull apart at section 1 and 4, and so therefore 5, 6, and 7 will pull off. So these, if I opened here, these sections here can be pulled off. And if I opened here, I can take this section out. So you can use whatever height you're working at. You don't need to use a heavier pole. You just use the weight of the pole to get you to that height. And secondly, that when you're using the pole, you're normally just holding it with 2 hands. But if you need to adjust the pole, you need to get to that clamp there, whatever that clamp is. So you don't want your sections too long. And that way you can do those micro adjustments. What happens when you're cleaning a window, maybe you're at this angle and then there's some garden thing, so then you're at that angle and then you come in again and then you have to go around a car and you're at this angle. So actually as a window cleaner, we're adjusting the length of the pole, small adjustments just to keep the brush square on the glass and make sure that our action is easy. So I find that, when I was window cleaning, I was adjusting the length of the pole a lot. And if you have a 6-foot pole section as your handle, then you kind of got to reach way up here to adjust the pole. So then maybe you don't adjust the pole and then you lose some of your efficiency and you also lose your enjoyment of window cleaning. So I think if somebody is shorter, then you would want to make sure that you use a pole made with short sections.
Hey, Harry.
Yeah.
Is this only for the tactical pole where you can pull apart?
No, Mini is the same. Mini pulls apart at the same. And Warrior, he's up here, so you can see Warrior's a little bit longer. Yeah, beam up there. So Warrior is the same, but Warrior pulls apart at 1, 3, 5, and of course 7 is the handle. And you've got shock stop can go over the top of the handle of all of them. So, and Mini can be extended to 4 stories, Tactical can be extended to 5 stories, Warrior can be extended to 7 stories. They're made of different compositions of carbon fiber so that we can get them to stay rigid as you go to those kind of different heights. And so, but from a from a structural point of view. The second thing that I think makes a difference if you're a light-framed person is to use your legs as much as possible. So you see a big beefy guy, right? He's gonna scrub my windows like this, you know, he's gonna use all upper body. But if you don't have that same power in the upper body, then you use your legs. So you can rock with your legs, and we used to call it the rocking water-fed motion or something like that. If we go back when we kind of gave it a name. But you basically try and walk the pole rather than work the pole like that. And even big guys like me would do that if we're cleaning at 6 and 7 stories, because the pole is, you know, that much harder and that much heavier in relation to our weight. And maybe the windows, if you're doing big commercial buildings, maybe the windows are 10 foot tall anyway, so you've got to get the brush from the top of the window to the bottom of the window. Well, if you've got to get the brush to go 10 feet that way, you've got to go 10 feet or more that way, you know, in order for the pole to go like that. So it doesn't only apply as a tip to female or light, let's call them light frame people with the presupposition towards the female, because that was who wrote to me. Then, you know, the same logic applies in relation to your weight and the load that you're carrying. Okay, that's topic number 1. How did I go, Martin?
Very good.
Yes. Now, Eva Pages Oliver from Perth, Australia. She wrote to us and said, this might be a dumb question to put out there for some, but can someone explain the purpose of a dual DI tank? She has a single, right? She also has a flow red, by the way, but she actually pulled this out for cleaning her windows at her own home.
What's flow red?
Flow red is a RODI system, reverse osmosis DI system. Yeah, good question. Thank you. So it's probably better, rather than saying what's the advantage of a single DI tank, is to say what's the difference between, oh no, she said what's the advantage of a dual DI tank. Yeah, so what's the difference? Well, a DI is an ionically charged resin. DI resin is an ionically charged resin which has the ability to attract minerals out of the water as the water is going through it. And so the way it's working is the water is randomized at the top, it's going down to the bottom. At the bottom, it's being collected in one way or the other. It's either coming out the bottom or it's going up a tube in the middle and it's coming out the top again. And so if you have a high TDS or a high mineral count and you've got to take a lot of minerals out of the water, then it's actually contact time with the resin that determines your result. So if you have a high TDS and a slow flow rate, then you can take a lot more minerals out of the water. And if you have a low TDS and a high flow rate, you can manage that. But if you have a high mineral content and you're trying to have a high flow rate, then you may not have enough contact time in one tank. So that's where you can have a second tank. And then you've got contact time through the first tank, contact time through the second tank, and you can have a higher TDS at source. So the way to know whether that's what's happening is to determine the flow rate that you like. I know with the radial brushes, we like half a gallon a minute. So you set your flow rate at half a gallon a minute, and then you see if you can get your current TDS down to 0 with your DI tank. Now, if it doesn't come down to 0, then you would say, get a second DI tank and it'll come down to 0 in most cases. The worst case is it doesn't come down to 0 with 2 of our DI tanks, which is half a cubic foot but together. Then you would, in America, for example, you'd go to Culligan's and rent one of those massive tanks which has got 1 cubic foot in it, and just rent those and lease them and take them back, and they give you another one like that, because then you have 1 cubic foot to take out whatever TDS it is, right? Because it's contact time. The second reason, let's say that one DI tank does take out your mineral content and take it down to 0 at the flow rate that you choose. Well, the problem with DI is that there's no indicator that the ionic charge is exhausting, right? So it just exhausts at its own time, right? And there's no predictability, because you could be cleaning windows in areas where the water is a different TDS. has a different mineral contact. You could be going one side of town and it's lake water, another side of town and it's coming out of the ground from an aquifer. And one could be TDS 100 and one could be TDS 400.
But you could check. You could use to check it, right? You can check your TDS.
Yes. So you can know that your TDS has failed with Check It, and Check It is designed for DI users. Good. Check It looks like this. So this is, thank you, Martin.
You're welcome.
This you can mount, if you're a DI only user, right, you can mount this under your brush and you can just press the button and it'll just read the TDS of the water in flow, and it only stays on for 5 seconds. So it doesn't use the battery up very quickly. And that way you can know that your TDS is okay on a continual basis. So that's one way, right?
You don't want to change it when you're working, right?
You don't want to change it. And you don't want to run out while you're working, right?
Yeah.
So this tells you you've run out, but that's not your ideal. That stops you working.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
That's not what you want.
Why did you want it?
So the reason we put 2 DI tanks, even you see, like most of our competitors sell you half cubic foot and 1 tank. But the reality is that tank is going to run out at some point or some random point. And if you're doing a huge job on that random day, and this is what used to happen to us, right, when we were window cleaning. So if you ran out in the middle of a big job, then you will start leaving spots, or you'll have to leave the job, or you'll have to stop and refill your tank if you only have 1 tank. So we decided to go towards 2 single quarter cubic foot tanks so that you have this other function called redundancy. So if 1 tank will take the TDS down to 0, that means that your second tank is now redundancy. So every day before you start work, you can check the TDS out of the first tank. If the TDS is still 0 out of the first tank, the second tank's not going to do anything, so it's just basically sitting there with the water going through it in a redundant form.
So nothing will happen to that?
Nothing will happen until this first tank starts to exhaust,
Okay, makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
And depending on the resin, so there's 3 resins, right? 50-50, 60-40, and 65-35, which is a difference between cation and anion balance, which is for soft water going through to hard water, to take out more calcium, magnesium if you're in a hard water area. So what will happen is that if you're, basically the ionic charge will start to fail based on the minerals which have gone through your tank in that period of time, which is unpredictable. And so either the cation will fail first or the anion will fail first. It was really impossible to imagine that they both fail at the same time every time. So how do you know when one side has failed or not? Then you'll normally see it creep up from 0 to 1 to 3 to 7 to 10, which 10 is our alarm bell statistically, albeit we do have a reach workshop on TDS 50 can be spot free. And so you basically, if you let it run, the first tank run, and you have your second tank as redundancy, then, okay, it's creeping up to 10 to 20, then the second tank is starting to cut in, right? So let's say the cation is failed, so now the TDS is creeping up, then the cation in the second tank is starting to work, right? So now you have your second tank running as redundancy. And if you kept running like that, then let's say the cation is 50, well, let's say it's 60% is cation, then it'll ultimately go up to a certain line, and then let's say your TDS was 100, then it'll go up to TDS 60, and then it'll sit in a line because the cation was failing. When the cation is fully failed, but the anion is still working, then it'll be 60, right? Complex. Anyway, that's what Q&A Fridays are for, right?
I think your coffee will get closer.
Oh, nice call.
You get some more maybe. Yeah.
Turn that one around for me, because it's distracting me.
This one?
No, the phone.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not that attached to the number.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap it along, see if we answer that. Right, so one reason is if you've got a high TDS, higher TDS than the flow rate which you can handle, you use dual DI, and the other reason is that you have redundancy. Even though if one tank will work, you have redundancy going forward, so that you never have a day where you're not spot free, because you can test the TDS out of the first tank and then replace the resin in the first tank while the second tank is working.
Sounds like a big time saver.
It's a huge. It's a peace of mind thing as well, right? Because you go crazy if you run out of resin, right? Or you just found that you've done half a job and your TDS is too high. And that's where Check It comes in, but not everybody who might watch these has got Reach It or Check It, so then it's interesting. But it'll fit on any pole. It's designed for, 5/16 and 3/8 tube. You can use it either way. So that's good. All right. Next one is, John asks, what is the most aggressive scrubber you have? We're dealing with some very grimy glass that is 30 feet high and boar's hair didn't touch it. Okay. Grimy, I heard grimy. As soon as I read grimy, I go grimy. Grimy is the problem, right? So let's backtrack. He's got boar's hair and it's not touching it. Boar's hair is a grabber. Yeah, it's a grabber. Nylon bristles are a scratcher. Then you've got blades that cut, and you've got, what's the other one? Scratch, scrape, and grab. Yeah, scratch, scrape, and grab, right? So we've got scrape ones as well. So the reason why, if you go back over the last 50 years, this has basically been scratch and grab, boar's hair being the grab, nylon bristles being the scratch, and boar's hair works this way. A nylon, let me go back the right way. A nylon bristle is extruded, means it's made in a straight line through a machine out of plastic, and then when you cut it, you get the end of a bristle. And it's the end of the bristle, the tip of the bristle, that can scratch and, sort of flick dirt off glass, right? Whereas boar's hair looks really rigid when you see it dry, but actually once it's been wet for around 3 minutes, then it has the maximum. It's like our human hair, right? That it uptakes a huge amount of water, and then it becomes very soft. Yeah, like our bed head kind of thing. You have a shower and, you just don't look quite the same as when you brush it up and it's all dry and you're fine, right? So boar's hair, the difference between the tips of the boar's hair are no more effective than the tip of a nylon bristle. What happens is that because a nylon bristle is perfectly round, it has no agitation value. As soon as you get a bristle that is flat on glass, it has no agitation value. It's just going to be rubbing along and doing nothing.
The edge of the bristle is what's...
It's the tip.
The tip, I mean.
Yeah. The tip of the bristle is what makes it work on nylon. But it's the side of a bristle of boar's hair, because boar's hair is natural. And if you imagine, or you look at hair under a telescope, you can see it's got all these little irregularities and everything.
Like fibers? Or?
It's kind of like fibers and it splits, or it's got irregularities, and it just doesn't grow perfectly. Yeah. We think it's a piece of hair and it's the same all the way along, but it's not. It's got texture, and it's the side of the bristles grabbing on the glass that give it a friction coefficient, which makes it grab things off glass. So step one, we know that the friction coefficient of boar's hair, assuming that it's an actual boar's hair brush, because about 2 or 3 years ago, boar's hair brushes, long boar's hair is really expensive, right? So you think you've got to buy, when you get a brush that's made by stapling a staple into plastic, right? You get a plastic block and you get some hair and then you staple it into the plastic. That's a normal broom style brush, right? When you've got boar's hair and you want it to be 2 inches long, you have to have boar's hair that's 4 inches long. Actually, you have to have boar's hair that may be 4.5 inches long, because you've got to trim the brush, right? So you get the boar's hair and you grab it like this, you staple it in, and then you trim it at 2 inches roundabout for a boar's hair brush. So to save the money on a boar's hair brush but still sell it as a boar's hair brush, then the idea came that you put the boar's hair in the middle of the brush and you put nylon on the outside of the brush and you call it a boar's hair brush. But if you've got the nylon on the outside of the brush, those are the bristles that are doing this work, and the boar's hair never gets the chance to work like an old boar's hair brush. If you look back in the history of window cleaning and the old days when people had boar's hair brushes, and some of the people still got them, it goes like this, like a brush, exactly like a brush works, right? You don't paint a brush with the tip very often. You usually, make a brush like that, and that's how boar's hair really works, is the edges of the bristles. So you want the bristles to fold and fold and fold, and then they wear out because they're natural fiber, so they break and tear, and then you have to get another one and stuff like that. But that's the history of the boar's hair brush, and how now a boar's hair brush is basically boar's hair on the middle, but it's really not taking advantage of all of the functionality of what boar's hair is meant to be. So he's got a boar's hair brush. I don't know if it's a nylon encased boar's hair brush, but it's not cutting it, whatever it is. And he called the window grimy, right? So it won't grab and it's grimy. Then you would naturally gravitate that he has got hydrocarbons, like oil-based, pollution-based. Maybe he lives beside a highway, or the customer, lives beside a highway, a railway line, a factory, an industrial area, or something like that. So there's pollution going up, which has got hydrocarbons, and it's sticking to the window. And you rub a nylon brush, you'll brush on it, you'll leave little lines. You rub a boar's hair brush, it'll leave little lines. It doesn't come off at all. So the answer to that is, if I remember we're dealing with some very grimy glass that is 30 feet high, and boar's hair didn't touch it. What is the most aggressive scrubber you have? Our most aggressive scrubber for grimy glass that boar's hair doesn't cut it is microfiber, right? Which is our least aggressive scrub.
I have it here.
Martin.
You're welcome.
You make such a good assistant.
There you go, mate.
Thank you, sir. So what you would do, you would use this scrub of all the scrubs, and you would put detergent on it, because detergent is degreaser. Degreaser takes oil and that kind of thing up. So just Dawn is fine. And it doesn't need to be anything like super special. And then you would actually clean the window, and that would break down the hydrocarbons and introduce them into the rinse, and then you'd be fine. And most detergents that we would use as window cleaners don't leave spots. So that would be the answer. The most aggressive scrub we have for grimy windows that boar's hair doesn't touch is microfiber, right? Now,
Fiber. Can I see what it looks like? Maybe
close
to the camera?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's right, because this is
Yeah.
real, right?
Yeah, we're live.
Delete that.
Yeah, we have it. All right.
Great. So that should answer John's question.
Let me show you sharp here.
All of these other scrubs will give you grief,
Bada bing.
right? They all have their place. They all have their place, but that is the answer to that question, right? Next one. Both Joey from Go Window Pro and John from Waves Window Australia have asked us about that sometime in the last 12 years they've bought a Reach It Pro from us, and they want to know a little bit of detail about it. So I'll put it here because Reach It Pro, you know how actually it's very congruent, right? Reach It Pro was our commercial pole until about 3 years ago, when I realized how many window cleaners are not 6'6" tall like me, because I've never had a problem with 6-foot sections. Okay, next, Joey from Go Window Pro and John from Waves Window Australia both asked questions about Reach It Pro. Now, Reach It Pro was our commercial pole. We still sell it as somebody reorders one, but we don't have it in the website. But Reach It Pro is our commercial pole, and it was 6-foot sections, which is funny that they asked the question, which is similar to the question that I referred to before. So Reach It Pro was replaced with Warrior, pulls apart at sections 1, 3, and 5 the same way. But what we did with Warrior is we made it 5'8", right? So maybe I'll just show you that compared to Tactical, just so you've got a visual on it.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'6". So a Reach It Pro is 7 foot, 6 inches above me. So we took our Reach It Pro, turned it into a Warrior. It's a shorter pole, but we can get it to the same height. And then, of course, Tactical is the improvement on the Mini. If you don't need to go to 5 stories, you can get away with a Mini. If you want to go to 4 and 5 stories, then you'll be pleased you got a Tactical, because it's just that much more rigid. Okay. So now that we've changed to Warrior, you can't find Reach It Pro on the website. They both want to know, do we still have extensions for Reach It Pro? And you know what's exciting about this is that we are still selling extensions for Reach It Pro that we sold 10 and 11 years ago, right? So they really have stood the test of time. And the same with the minis, right? People still buy extensions for the mini. They just, for the first time in 8-9 years, they just got a 4-story job, and can I extend my mini? And that was the whole idea of when I designed, mini, which was the reason we started Reach It, was to make a pole where you only had to buy 25 feet, and you don't have to buy a lot of. When I was a window cleaner, I had 6 poles. I had a ground floor pole, a 1-story pole, 2-story pole, 3-story pole, 4-story pole, 5-story pole, 6-story pole. Somebody was a window cleaner. Like, the pole sales company made a lot of money. But here's the problem. If you got a 1-story pole, 2-story pole, 3-story pole, 4-story pole, 5-story pole, 6-story pole, and you add those together, 1 and 2 is 3, and 3 is 6, and 4 is 10, and 5 is 15, and 6 is 21. You've got 21 stories of pole to clean 6 stories. And I thought, this is crazy. This is actually the true story why we started Reach It. Right? So I said, what if I could make a pole that was exactly, on the 80-20 rule, covered 80% of the work you wanted to do. Mini and Tactical will do 2 stories and below for 80% of the work. Warrior does 4 stories and below for your 80-20 rule. And then you can extend it at any time in the future. So you don't get... Tactical, Tactical is a 2-story pole if you only bought Tactical, and a 3-story pole if you buy it with shock stop. It's kind of like in that middle. It's a 2-story pole because what happens is you've got hilly terrain, so maybe the front of the building's 2 stories, the back of the building's 2.5 to 3 stories. So then Tacticals and Mini are both that same 25-foot actual length, 30-foot reach. And Warrior's 33-foot actual length, 38-foot reach. And then if you buy it in an Elite pack, then you get shock stop, which takes it up to the same length as a Reach It Pro.
Sorry, what the question was again?
No, there's no question. It hasn't been asked yet. So, no, the basic question is, what extensions work with a Pro? And I thought what's interesting because, if the extensions for Reach It Pro are the same as the extensions for Reach It Mini. The extensions for Reach It Tactical are the same. Sorry, the extensions for Reach It Pro are the same for Warrior, and the extensions for Tactical are the same for Mini, or the other way around. So extensions for Mini are the same as Tactical. So that's basically the logic. And then you can extend it with plus A and 2Bs or 3Bs, 1B, 2B, 3Bs, or A, B, B, like that. And you can see them up here. We'll cover those another day. But just to know, plus A and 2Bs or 3 plus Bs, if you don't like having 2 different ones, then you can just use plus Bs, and you can extend Tactical and Mini by 8 foot 4 inches, and you can extend Pro and Warrior by 11 foot 4 inches.
And how high can you clean with those?
Well, then Warrior will go to 75 feet. Tactical will go to 55 feet, something like that. Tactical will go to 5. Mini will go to 4, Tactical will go to 5, Warrior will go to 7.
Okay.
Yeah, like that. So that answers that question. Next. Woohoo!
Right.
So somebody asked me...
Oh, by the way, sorry. You have a new cup, right?
Oh, I have my Reach It Workshop cup.
Yeah. Workshop.
Yeah, nice.
We got it, we got it this week. We need it.
I love it. It's great. So this got asked on live chat, but do we have a brush for French panes or cut-ups? And how do we deal with French panes and cut-ups? And so maybe I did cover this last week. Did I? Anyway, a little bit. We would normally use a radial or a light to go over French panes, but we have in production now what's going to be radial ultralight. So the only people who'll know about this are the people who watch Q&A on Fridays, right? So it'll, finished product will look something like this. And then actually, if you're watching, because it's kind of hollow, but if you're watching, it's a very, very fine, very nimble, very, very neat little brush. And if you're watching, I want to know what length that needs to be, what width should be right? Because at the moment, this is maybe 8 inches, right? And that'll give you a little, it's crazy light. Feel it? Like it's grams, right? Ounces.
Very light.
Crazy.
Because maybe I destroy your
No. This is just still final. I mean, this is the final mold is made, so now we're getting the end caps made and all the bits and pieces, and it's really going to be an amazing brush. So, but it would help me to know what your French panes are like. 6 inches or 8 inches.
Yeah. 6 or 8 inches.
Yeah, but pretty much. So I only want to make one. At the beginning, we're going to make what'll be a 14-inch splay on the glass. So by the time these bristles have splayed out, it'll be 14 inches across. That'll be the first one. But then straight after that, we're keeping the stock so we can cut it once we know these answers.
So if we get answer, we can put it out on the market.
Yes, you got it. But we don't know which one. Okay, another one. What's the difference between RO and DI? We get asked that really, really frequently. So the difference between RO and DI, put simply, is and we've got some Reach It workshops coming on this, by the way. I've got most of the work done on it. In fact, today we've got the final part to be able to do that. So basically, an RO separates minerals from pure water, and a DI attracts the minerals out of the pure water. An RO, which is reverse osmosis, right? An RO will use, say, 40 to 50% of the water that's going into the RO will come out as waste. When it goes out as waste, it has more minerals in it than what went in, because there's less minerals in what went through the filter and came out as pure water.
Oh, so the RO, the minerals gets pushed out.
Yeah. So basically, osmosis is when a membrane is used, and a low concentration goes to a high concentration. Reverse osmosis is when a membrane is used and it goes from a high concentration to a low concentration. So we have a high concentration of minerals going in, a low concentration of minerals going out. So you have reverse osmosis. Yeah? How cool is that?
Pretty awesome. But because the resin, as far as I know, it attracts it. Right?
But that's DI.
Sorry.
Yeah, so those are separate. RO is that, that's right.
Yeah, but
DI, no, because you asked the difference. DI is when you basically have DI resin, it's ionically charged, and that charge attracts the minerals, because all minerals, except for one form of silicate, all minerals have an ionic charge. So the DI attracts the minerals out of the water and holds on to them for as long as it's got charge. When the charge, the rest I'll tell you in a Reach It workshop, because I'm working on it right now. It's pretty cool. I've got a great demo for that. Okay, so that's the difference between an RO and DI. An RO is basically free because it uses pressure. DI is a consumable because you have to use the resin, and when it runs out, you've got to throw it away, and it's environmentally safe to throw away, but you have to throw it away and then buy it again and use it again. Right? So one is it's like an inkjet printer is cheap to buy, but it costs a lot to run, and a laser printer is expensive to buy and is cheap to run. A DI is cheap to buy and costs money to run, and an RO is expensive to buy and doesn't cost much to run because you use water pressure. How's that? Done. Next. Okay, William Kubicek. I had a good old chat with William. Pardon me. And he said, will Rocker Brush work on construction home windows? So his company basically does a lot of construction cleans. And so they've got paint overspray, mortar, stickers and sticker residue. And anyway, anybody who's had to do a construction, in the end, I actually refused to do construction cleans because back in my day, they were just a disaster. You could be stuck for 3 days on a construction clean. So the answer is, Rocker Brush is designed with one of these scrubs for every aspect of a construction clean, except one, and that's mortar. And the reason is that mortar is made with basically a lime-based mix with sand. Sand is a silica. Sand is effectively a glass, and sand will cut glass. So if you get the mortar and you get a wet cloth and you rubber it around and round in circles, you will get round and round little fine scratch marks on the glass.
You get a pretty angry customer.
Well, the enemy of the window cleaner is that some little apprentice of the bricklayer's gone along and then flicks the mortar on the glass. He gets his apprentice to clean the glass. He gets a wet rag, rubs it round and round, right, smears it. Now the window's all dirty, and then they ask for the window cleaner to come along, and the window cleaner reveals the scratches that the bricklayer's apprentice put on the glass, right? So that's a nasty one. That's what I didn't like about construction cleans, one of the reasons. So If you have mortar on glass, there is one product you want to know, and this is called Cement Off from Titan Labs in Chicago. Oh, focus.
Yeah, focus is good.
Right? Yeah.
Good.
So this is Cement Off. Basically, you apply it to the mortar. I think it dissolves the lime-based whatever, and then you rinse it off. And basically, the sand will drop off the glass. Then you can come back to rocker and you can clean the rest of all the debris and stuff that's on the glass. But you cannot, there's no brush you can safely use on mortar without running the risk that you're going to grab a piece of sand, and certainly not microfiber. Certainly not, because microfiber's got no way to flush its debris. Microfiber is a grabber and it holds on to everything that it grabs. It doesn't have natural flow, like some of the other scrubs that we've got, which can also grab it, have the way for water to go through them. Yeah. All right, so stickers will come off with stainless steel mesh.
Okay. Let's see if I can.
This is a favorite for a lot of guys.
Can we see that? Something like this.
Yeah.
Stainless steel mesh. Yep.
Paint overspray sometimes comes off with stainless steel mesh, but a lot of guys revert to stainless steel wool. Now, this doesn't rust in 20 minutes like steel wool. This, as long as you dry any of these scrubs, they'll last you for weeks and months. Yep, unless you've been really, really aggressive, in which case you know that you've destroyed it, right? And then Magic Eraser, right? Magic Eraser will take off sticker residue. It won't take it off quickly, but nothing takes it off quickly. Even if you're traditional, you can't scrape on it. You've just got to keep rubbing it until it's gone. But Magic Eraser will take off sticker residue, maybe 10, it depends how old it is, but maybe 10 to 14 strokes. So if you've got sticker residue and you're using water fed, you can see the water you can just see the water go around the sticker residue, and you've got to just keep rubbing with Magic Eraser until the water cascades. The water will always cascade using any of the radial brushes. So when you can come down and you don't see the water go like that, then you know that the sticker residue is gone. The problem with sticker residue, it looks like it's clean, it looks like it's gone. Then the rising sun comes up and your customer sees it with the refraction of the light. It's a nano layer, right? It's a nano layer that you've got to get off, all of it, because it basically is hydrophobic. It's a hydrophobic layer, and they see the refraction of it. So that covers construction cleans.
Let me get a close-up of that again, though.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah, you can have a look at Cement Off by Titan Labs.
Cement Off.
I've answered that. I've got Reach It Pro, and I think, Martin,
Yep.
I am done.
The question remains, are you done with your coffee?
I have.
Q&A. Can I see?
See? Nearly gone.
Yeah, looks pretty good. Well done.
So, if you enjoyed this, it's very chatty, a little bit verbose, but I try and make it interesting, and I try and cover more than just what the person asked, so that in case that question is slightly interesting to you, but you're actually got a digression from it, then I try and add that extra detail.
One question always leads to another, right?
Yeah, and I've got to try and control myself so I don't talk for too long.
That's my job.
Yeah. So, but if you have any questions, go to the YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/future of cleaning. Leave a comment there, or you can drop it to me in my messenger, or you can go to our live chat on futureofcleaning.com, or Instagram TV now.
Yeah, we're going to start Instagram TV actually Friday.
This Friday we've got Instagram TV going, so you can leave comments there. But anywhere where you leave the comments, Jenny will grab those comments and then put them into a little list for us, and I'll try and do all of them. But as you can see, we're going to try and keep this in that 30 to 40 minute range. So we'll just pull it up and take them forward into the next week if we miss that one. Then if you go into YouTube, make sure you subscribe to get notifications. Then you know that we've published the Q&A on Friday. And then if you open up the description, they'll all be time-stamped. So this video will be time-stamped about female cleaning.
Jen will do that?
Yeah, Jen's going to do it. We've done that now for the last one. So, we talk about, Cement Off or, construction cleans. It'll have a timestamp. So you can actually select whether you want to listen to the whole thing or whether there's a topic or whether you just want to hear the answer to your question. Then you'll be able to go into the next Q&A on Fridays. And you're away. think that's all, right?
That's all.
Do we have a sign off? Did we design one last time?
We don't. Actually, maybe we put the little video coffee making. Video
Yeah, we'll make the coffee making video on the end and say it's time for you to have a coffee. Hopefully, you guys watch this on a Saturday morning. You know, that's what we thought. We'd put it out on a Friday, and you can watch it on a Saturday. Okay, that's time. See you at the next Reach It workshop.